Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam, providing real-world tools for transforming daily life. I'm still using that one, but I'm not crazy about that.
It was never meant to be like a public thing. I think it was just kind of like a God. It's like, hey, let's try to provide
But
tools.
it is. It does provide real-world tools, and it does transform daily life.
Okay.
I could have added with magical stories
Yeah.
of the gods and goddesses. Good morning to you. Special
Morning.
day today. We got on Patreon for Patreon members.
Mm-hmm.
Bhakti Couples interactive Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Bhakti
Danya.
Couples Brawl.
Danya Rico.
Danya Rika, she's a marriage counselor, therapist, and she's doing this Bhakti's couple thing. That's today, 2 p.m. If you are a couple, you don't have to even be with your partner, or your partner may not even know you're going. You could just say, how to make my husband or wife a Bhakti couple. Whatever it is, you got some questions, you can bring it to her. It's a interactive class. She'll talk a little, and there'll be a lot of questions. So if you're a couple or thinking about someday coupling up,
Or you want to help a couple. You just want to understand it better, right?
yeah, or unless you want to, or you're a sannyasi, a swami, and you just want to understand couples, you can listen in to find all the hell we're going through.
It's very popular last week.
Couple, yeah, it's wonderful. Kali Columbia. Want to say something about Kali Columbia, Kaustubha?
We're going to be there from January 19th till the 30th.
The 30th of January. Hang out with me, Kaustubha, and Mara.
Mara's going to be there. Mara won't be cooking, though. She'll just be relaxing.
She never gets a chance to relax. So we're going to let her relax, and we're going to do the cooking.
You know how to do a
I
race?
tell you that, Kaustubha.
I didn't know that. And but we'll be, engaged in all kinds of learning and fun and kirtans and yoga and philosophy and then nature too, right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's near the equator there, so the weather's always nice. And a lot of, the mountains are there, the Andes and the waterfalls and the farms. And there's a lot of great places.
Very excited. And special is it's $900 is the cost of it. And then you give a donation to the teachers. That's how we're doing it. We're trying to do a donation-based retreat.
Donation-based.
It might be the first time a yoga retreat's ever been donation-based.
It's not. No, Raghunath. No.
Well, in the Hare Krishna world, everything is cheap. In the yoga world, everything's like super.
Well, like there's Vipassana retreats that are like entirely free.
Oh yeah, there's those too. The Vipassana retreats.
There's probably a lot of other examples.
You can't compete with those Buddhists.
Okay. But anyway, how does one find this?
How do you find that? You can go to raghunath.yoga and click on the Wisdom of the Sages retreat. Okay. People are signing up. It's happening. It's fully happening. By the way, November 7th, I'm going to be in Tucson with our friend Damodar and Radha at their yoga studio, Baba Wellness in Tucson, Arizona. November 14th, Nashville, Tennessee. I'm going to be down there. November 15th, Louisville, Kentucky at Hot Yoga Louisville. I'm not doing a hot yoga class though. December 4th in Beaver, Pennsylvania. That's our friend Andrea Kay, Sangha Yoga there. She's a Zoom, she's a other. And December 5th in Pittsburgh at Zeb's Yoga Studio, Yoga Factory.
All right.
I'm going to see Zeb. Love him.
Yeah, I haven't seen him. It feels like a very long time.
I know. We're all together in January, bowing down to various gods and God.
Is that how you sum it all up? Okay.
That was a great trip this year. It was a great trip. All right. Ready to dive in?
Yes.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jaya mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta priyeshvabhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmadatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Kaustubha, want to announce where we are in the Bhagavatam?
Yeah, we are on Canto 2, Chapter 7, and today we pick up on text 9. We're going through a list of all the different, not all, but of many different avatars.
And their scheduled
appearances.
Yeah.
You know, I found a clue to our maybe a conclusive proof, but it's some kind of, maybe it's a clue. But remember, we were talking yesterday about how it seems like Brahma is describing to Narada in a position where Narada, his knowledge wasn't full. He was saying, "Are you the supreme creator?"
Yeah.
And then
it seemed out of chronological order.
It seemed out of chronological order because Narada was describing how. Brahma was describing how Narada was acting as a guru to Dhruva.
Yeah. Was it a previous?
Everything. Yeah.
That was my guess. A previous millennium.
Well, according to this is a clue, but to me it sounds like a pretty good clue. In text 10, he's it mentioned. Oh, is it text 10? No, text 12. It talks about the Matsya avatar, the fish avatar, and the flood that occurs. And Prabhupada's saying that during one day Brahma, there are 14 Manus. Right? Like Brahma has these incredibly long, he lives on this planet way in the higher levels. And with one day for him here in the earthly time, it goes through many different, or even universal time, there's many different stages within that one day. And there's a different Manu, a Deva in charge of certain responsibilities. There's 14 of those. And each one comes with a big flood, right? A big devastation kind of flood. So in any case, Prabhupada says this foretelling is by past experience of Brahmaji, who knew that in that fearful, devastating scene, the Vedas would come out of his mouth, but that the Lord, as his fish incarnation, would not only save all living entities, namely the demigods, animals, men, and great sages, but would also save the Vedas. So he's calling it a foretelling in the case of the Matsya one. You with me?
Oh, not really. But
it's pretty simple. That he's saying he's saying
Mara,
that.
did you understand that?
Yeah, a little bit.
So he's listing all the different incarnations, and with one of them, Matsya Avatar, Prabhupada's saying that he's foretelling what would happen.
Okay.
So that seems like, okay, well, that could also be the case with the other examples, like with Dhruva. He was foretelling that Narada, in the future, you're going to instruct Dhruva.
Right. And these guys, they always say these sages know past, present, and future. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting, huh?
Especially Brahma, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right, text 9. Let's dive in.
Yep.
Maharaj Vena. He's an interesting one. Went astray from the path of righteousness when kings go bad. Mm-hmm. We always hear about, from the Bhagavatam, we always hear about saintly kings, but this king went bad. Maharaj Vena. He went astray from the path of righteousness, and the Brahmins chastised him by the thunderbolt curse. I never heard that. By this, King Vena was burnt with the good deeds and opulence, and was en route to hell. Hell is like a place, like a planet. It's not eternal. Christians say it's an eternal place. In Vedic philosophy, they say it's a place that you do time. And exploited the earth by drawing all kinds of crops as produce. Is that a bad thing?
It's just saying these are different things that, no, it's not a bad thing.
I just drew some crops for produce.
It's saying, it's just listing two things that
He was famous for.
This Shaktivesha avatar, this Prithvi Maharaj was
I missed the line, Kaustubha.
Oh.
By his causeless mercy, he descended. Okay. The Lord, by his causeless mercy, descended as his son, King Vena's son, by the name of Prithu, and he delivered this condemned king, Vena, from hell.
There you go.
And then hell, and exploited the earth. You know, they use this word. I wonder if it's British English, because they use this word exploited in a not a negative way. When we say exploited, right?
It will certainly hear it.
Check in with me, British people. Yeah.
Well, I probably like some old English. I think pretty much everywhere that word probably carries a relatively negative implication. But it seems like Prabhupada's using it in just in a very precise, technical, maybe an old English way here. Right?
Exploited the earth by drawing all kinds of crops and produce.
So it means he did two things, two important things that he did are mentioned here. One is that he delivered his father. Now, so it tells the whole story about Vena, right?
That's a very peculiar story.
Well, it was just that he was a king that just had, I mean, really what it's about is that he wouldn't listen to good advice, right? You get a leader that gets like egotistical and is unable to hear any good advice. So all the Brahmanas were instructing him, trying to help him. They were really like, it's kind of like you have a really bad leader and he's really off and he's really powerful. And everybody's just trying to gently nudge him in the right direction respectfully, and he just won't hear it. And every time you give him a good advice, he comes across with the exact wrong advice. He was stopping all the universal sacrifices, right? Like, the Brahmanas are showing society how we have to show respect, how we have to show gratitude to the gods and to God. And he's like, no, actually, and they're trying to explain to him, and they're saying, if you don't shut this all down, but support it, then everybody's going to say what a great leader you are, and all the great things that are going to happen from it, you're going to get all the credit for it. And he's saying, no, they should be worshiping me. Right? And so everything he did was just like off.
This was the thing about this feudal system. There were kings, there were leaders, there were, these massive warriors, but they were directed by a class of people that were completely detached, that weren't purchased, that weren't financially subsidized by big tech, big pharma, big everything. They voluntarily took a vow of poverty, and they were the actual heads of society. These were the Brahmanas. And not only were they learned and wise and objective, they needed nothing. They didn't have anything. They couldn't be purchased. And from there, you can make good decisions. So the kings, even though they were the most powerful, they had the wealth, they had the property, they could call the shots. They had to ask the Brahmanas, what do you think we should do? Do I have your blessings to do this, to make these political moves? And if they disobeyed, the Brahmins were also mystics. And these particular Brahmins, they took them right out of office. They just said, you're gone. And that was what a feudal system is. And this is what probably,
I'm not sure if feudal is the right term, but
feudal is the European
monarchical.
way of saying the same thing. We call it varnashram dharma, but if in 8th grade social studies, it's the same thing. You have the priests, you have the kings, you have the serfs, but it's the same thing. And the West probably borrowed it from the East. It probably exists in all cultures anyway. But it's like when we hear about the fall of the papacy, that is the corruption of the Brahmins. They couldn't be trusted. And then it's like a money grab, a power grab, a land grab for these warriors who weren't checked by ethics. And so Prabhupada's even made statements. The Bhagavatam is to recreate a class of Brahmins again. It's not working in my case. It happened to you. Look at you.
But by the way, I think your mic may have switched. Maybe your cable got shaken or something like that. But you sound really distant right now.
You sound distant.
Distant. You feel distant right now, Raghunath.
You know what happens? I've got my headphones on. My wife came in, and I pulled out so she could hear it. Because otherwise, she can't hear
Just
you.
check your mic on your preferences and see if you're on the right mic.
Okay. Keep talking.
That sounds better.
I can't. I'm looking down.
Anyway, it did. Any case, this is from the commentary that Prabhupada says on this verse. He says, long life, obedience, good reputation, righteousness, prospects of being promoted to higher planets, and blessings of great personalities are all vanquished simply by being disobedient to a great soul, right? Like when we can't hear from someone that's really wise, everything good just starts to fall apart. And that's what happened with this Vena. And it mentions here that he got hit with a thunderbolt curse. Really what had happened was the Brahmins took him out, right?
Brahmins took him out.
After a lot of tolerance and a lot of really trying to make it work, they just realized he's going to destroy everything.
Right.
We got to do something about this. He's just going to ruin the entire society. And so, but they did it with mantra, with high-pitched sound. Somehow it was like
a dog whistle.
I don't know what it sounded like. But and so and it's saying, so he was en route to hell because he just lived such a terrible, egotistical, destructive life. But Prithu, he did all that he could, for his welfare.
The Vedic, the Varnashram system is it's actually very cool. If you want to be number one, you got to give up everything. Voluntarily, Prabhupada calls it voluntarily taking a vow of poverty. And if you want the power, if you want that influence, if you want to be if you've got that ego that goes with it, that's okay. But you're number two. And the number ones are the intellectuals of the society. They use their intellect to study the Vedas, and the Vedas leads you. If you're really a philosopher, it leads you to renunciation, because you understand everything's ultimately temporary.
Right.
Yeah,
renunciation, but along with renunciation, like kindness and gentle behavior and all of that was also part of it. Because when we think intellectual nowadays, it can mean arrogance or whereas the Brahmana was not only the intellectual, but the Brahmana was also like that person that was very kind and very generous and etc.
Mara, symptoms of a Brahmana. You got this? Here's your hot seat for Friday morning.
I don't know.
I never had to memorize those verses.
I know.
Samadhamma tapa.
Yeah, peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work. Right? Peacefulness and that, self-control. It's nice. Yeah. Okay.
All right. That was the Shakti-Avesh avatar of King Prithu.
Yeah,
and we're talking about these incarnations now.
By the way, later on in the fourth canto, we'll read about Prithu, and just incredible lessons come through his behavior. And like when Indra tries to steal the horse and how he responds to that and all that. It's great stuff.
We read a good. Anyway, we'll get into it.
What you reading?
We read reading Sweet Baby Krishna last night.
Yeah,
there's just so many all these demons that attack Krishna. They have so many interesting backstories. These demons, and one was again Indra doing a horse sacrifice, and it was who was it, Mara?
So we call that a horse rejuvenation ceremony.
Yeah, the horse rejuvenation ceremony. So when Krishna killed Keshi, this is from the Garga Samhita, when Krishna killed Keshi, the horse demon, a beautiful being came out of this horse wearing earrings and a crown and bowed to Krishna and said, thank you so much. My name is, I can't remember his name. But anyway, he came out and basically said, in my previous birth, I was an assistant of Indra, and he was doing this horse yagya, and the horse was very beautiful, and I wanted to ride this horse. And so I just went off on the horse, and Indra got furious at me and looked at me and goes, "Oh, wretch, become a horse." And he said, in yugas from now, you'll get liberated by Lord Krishna. And so he got cursed to take birth with this horse body. Interesting. Backstories.
Okay.
Everything's got a backstory. But he was actually a very saintly being. Okay, moving on. Text 10. The Lord appeared as the son of Sudevi, the wife of King Nabi, and was known as Rishabhadev. He performed materialistic yoga. What's that, like Bikram? What's materialistic?
The word
to
that's
equivalence
translated
the
here.
mind. What's that?
The word that's translated here as materialistic is jada,
Jada. Huh.
which really means and because we know the story of
Judd Bart.
well, Judd Bart, but I'm saying because we know the story of Rishabhadev, he was also acting like that. Jada, it seems to imply like someone that's dull-headed, dull-minded, learning disabled, right? So Rishabhadev was kind of living a life of extreme renunciation and austerity, and almost appearing like a madman or a learning disabled person to the average person.
Okay, well, this stage is also accepted as the highest perfectional situation of liberation, wherein one is situated in oneself and is completely satisfied.
So Prabhupada writes, he says, the real purpose of Jada-yoga, as mentioned here in this verse, is, and these are the terms used in the verse, prashanta karana, subduing or pacifying the senses, and parimukta sangaha, being liberated from all material attachment. So Prabhupada says the real purpose of this type of yoga is mentioned in this verse as prashanta karana, subduing the senses. And this is a great sentence Prabhupada says here, the whole process of yoga, under whatever heading it may be. So in other words, it may be Ashtanga yoga, it may be Jnana yoga, it may be Karma yoga, Bhakti-yoga. Here it's mentioned this term Jada-yoga, which seems like a severe form of kind of like Jnana yoga, I suppose you could say. But he says the whole process of yoga, under whatever heading it may be, is to control the unbridled material senses and thus prepare oneself for self-realization, right? It's always going there. It's just a question of knowing how it's going there, right? That's why when we say yoga is a practice which empowers one to overcome the obstacle of the mind. The mind is the sixth sense, and the other senses all affect the mind, right? For the purpose of the self, experiencing its own true nature or self-realization.
I gotta memorize that.
Huh?
I gotta memorize that quote.
You want to work on that one?
Yeah.
So the whole process of yoga, under whatever heading it may be, is to control the unbridled material senses and thus prepare oneself for self-realization. In this age, specifically, this Jada yoga cannot be of any practical value. Okay, it's like we don't even bother, right? Don't bother just like lying on the side of the street and appearing like a mad person and not eating or eating. It's like it's an extreme kind of form of sense control. But Prabhupada says, but Bhakti yoga is feasible because it is. He says, but on the other hand, the practice of Bhakti yoga is feasible because it is just suitable for this age. It's just suitable. The simple method of hearing from the right source, Srimad Bhagavatam, will lead one to the highest perfectional stage of yoga.
I knew a Jada-yoga practitioner. Kid you not. In Los Angeles.
What were they doing?
Well, there's an alley there by the temple, and when me and my wife got married, we lived there.
Yeah.
There was this homeless man who lived out there in the temple. And it was appeared like a homeless, like full on homeless in every way. And then early in the morning, I would see him sneak into the temple, go up to the balcony, and just be intensely chanting japa. And then he definitely had like a deep connection with the deity as well. And then he would disappear and he'd pretend to be homeless. And one day I pulled him aside. I kid you not. One day I pulled him aside. I said, I know what's going on here. And he's just like, just sort of like, he was like, I feel like he was faking it. Yeah. I feel like he was faking it.
Wow.
Not faking his bhakti. He was faking like he was not of this world to stay out of the material world.
Interesting.
And he was very detached, disheveled. People didn't talk to him because they thought, people were nice to him. I think he always ate prasad every day. They'd bring him prasad because he was a homeless person.
Amazing.
But just live in that alley. But I think he was very, very connected, and I think he was very sharp. Jada-yogi.
Got a little Jada-yogi there.
Yeah, it's not practical for the masses. If I told everybody, hey, let's all become homeless and pretend. Okay, text 11. The Lord appeared as the Haryagriva incarnation in a sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He is the personified sacrifices, and the hue of his body is golden. He is the personified Vedas as well, and the super soul of all demigods. When he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils.
Amazing. And that's an amazing horse.
He's a horse. Well, we forgot that little detail. He is a horse. He is a horse god.
Yeah.
For all of you, what are horse people called, Mara?
Equestrians.
Equestrians. He's the god of the equestrians. At the end of the millennium, the would-be Vaivashvata Manu of the name Satyavrata would see the Lord in the fish incarnation. In the fish incarnation, it is the shelter of all kinds of living entities, up to those in the earthly planets. Because of my fear of the vast water at the end of the millennium, the Vedas came out of my, Brahma's, mouth, and the Lord enjoys those vast waters and protects the Vedas. Can I ask you a question, Kaustubha?
Okay.
The flooding. We hear the story. It's like in the Bible as well. The Great Flood. Is this on the Earth planet? Is it on the Bhu Mandala? Like there's a disk. We talk about 14 planetary systems. It's a disk of many, many, many planets. Is there a flood in that? Is a flood in the entire material universe, or is a flood on like this Earth planet that we live in? Have you ever heard that explained?
Right here in the commentary, Prabhupada says, during one day of Brahma, there are 14 manus, and at the end of each manu, there is a devastation up to the earthly planets.
So up to the earthly planets.
But then he also says, well, it means up to that level, right?
From the lower planets, from Patala to Earth?
That seems to be indicating that. But then it also says, and the vast water is fearful even to Brahma. Now, Brahma's on a much higher planet. I don't know if he's fearful for the beings down here or if he's fearful that it's getting up that high.
It's sort of like if the water's rising up to your house, but you're like, wait, is it going to go higher?
It's only up to Earth so far, but it's coming.
It's coming up. But it only goes up to Earth, perhaps, the Bhu Mandala.
I'm not sure.
Interesting.
2 indications in this commentary.
Okay. Interesting that there's always this flood story. The primeval Lord then assumed the tortoise incarnation in order to serve as a resting place, a pivot for the Mandara mountain, which was acting as a churning rod. The demigods and the demons were churning the ocean of milk with the Mandara mountain in order to extract nectar. The mountain moved back and forth, scratching the back of the Lord tortoise, who, while partially sleeping, was experiencing an itching sensation. What? You can't make this stuff up. The Lord was a turtle with an itch while he was sleeping, and it got scratched by a mountain. And you know what's interesting? As fantastic as that sounds, there is a massive statue of it in the Bangkok airport. Isn't that cool?
Of the churning of the ocean.
Churning of the ocean of milk. There's the turtle. There's the mountain. There's the snake as the churning rope. Mm-hmm. Name of the snake, Mara, quick.
I don't know.
You see, Mara's this thing. She's like, whenever you ask it, she's going, I don't know. This is just trying to discourage you from asking her more. I don't know.
Let's see if anybody on the board gets that. Name of the snake. Come on. Give me something.
Krishna Drew.
Come on. You got to beat Paramananda here. Yep, there. Jamuna Jaya. Vasuki. So Vasuki was the snake, and it was turned by the demigods and the demons. Then all the things popped out. Can you name 4 things that popped out? Kaustubha.
Kaustubha jewel.
Kaustubha jewel. Boom.
The hala hala poison.
The hala hala poison drank by Lord Shiva went to the neck. That's what they call him, Nilkant, or blue neck one.
Let's say the horse.
Uchai the horse.
Uchai. And ultimately the nectar came out.
And the nectar came out.
Many things came out. That Leela. Now you know, we're hearing these things that just sound far out mythological. For sure.
Airavata. Wait, the message board's out of control here. Lakshmi Devi, Airavata. It wasn't Sheshanag. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. I got drawn in by that Maya message board of ours.
So as I was saying, you know, these sound like obviously the most far out stories you can imagine in one sense. And but these were handed down. Now, Narada said, or rather, Brahma said to Narada at the end of the last chapter, he said, "Now I shall state one after another the transcendental incarnations of the Lord known as Leela avatars." And he said, "Hearing of their activities counteracts all the foul matters accumulated in the ear. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished. Therefore, they're in my heart." Right. And so although we're kind of just blowing through them and maybe even speaking of them maybe a little irreverentially. What you look guilty when I said that.
Say anything irreverential.
Well, I don't, in other words, we're just saying, isn't this far out? You know, but it's like, but let's just think about like, you know, the culture of India as it's been handed down for like literally many centuries, that these stories are handed down. And just on a practical level, like, you know, just on a very real and tangible level, we could see the wisdom that's handed down through these and how they are pleasing, right? The songs were composed about these, dances were composed about these, you know, dramas and, you know, all different art forms were growing out of this tradition of storytelling, but also the wisdom, you know, the wisdom of how to live, how to practice yoga, how to govern a society, etc. Like it was all growing out of this tradition of wisdom storytelling.
Well, you have also these very credible people who credible in the way they live their life with integrity, credible with their actual intellectual capacity, who are studying all these things, who can speak and they live this wisdom life. Yet they're accepting these very far out stories as of course. Not it's for us. It sounds, for the uninitiated, so to speak, it sounds like fantastic, and these intellectual, these self-controlled, these mahants, these great souls. They're thinking, yeah, of course,
yeah.
Why would God appear just as a human? Why not as this animal? Why not as this turtle? Why not as this boar? Why not as this fish? What makes you think God's going to appear like you, looking like you all the time?
Right. Yeah. And so beyond first of all, there is this kind of learning that comes through this, and this kind of this purifying. Like, in other words, Brahma said these are pleasing to my heart, right? They're relished, and they're counteracting all of the other stuff that one might hear.
What was that word? The foul
matter.
Foul
matter is
matter
accumulated in the ear. He says they're pleasing to hear, and they're to be relished. Therefore, they're in my heart. And it's just really, you know, what Prabhupada was doing was he was just trying to make this available to the Western world. You know, it's like that's what he was staying up, you know, waking up at midnight and meditating on and sharing and translating and trying to help us kind of understand its relevance, you know.
And there's something also magnetic about it, for our minds that go to them, that want to hear them, that we can't even quite explain.
And that's the point, is that we were speaking about yesterday, is there's a lot going on here. One is there are lessons to learn through it. Another thing is that it's just Krishna's way of having fun. You know, it's just his adventurous own, you know, spirit or nature. Why wouldn't God have that spiritual, creative, dynamic nature? And then but then beyond that, it's also meant to captivate our mind, right? To draw us in.
Right.
Right.
Sweet Baby Krishna, yesterday we're reading how Akrura shows up. So you have this like fantastic story. You got the evil king. He sends one of his loyal servants who happens to be in love with Krishna to go get Krishna and his family members so he could kill them with a massive elephant and a bunch of wrestlers. It's like the story itself is just, it's like a child's tale, but also, it's peppered with this deep wisdom of the heart of a devotee when he comes to Vrindavan, how to behave, how to act. He comes down off the chariot, he bows, he rolls in the dust. The separation of the cowherd girls when Krishna leaves, and how separation from God is different than if your boyfriend leaves you or your girlfriend leaves you. It's a deep type of love. So it's like a fantastic story, like a Grimm's Brothers tale, mixed with these deep philosophical truths that the Acharya explains. And this is why we have purports of the masters, or else we're just sort of like reading through these sort of fantasies. Although even the texts sometimes will go into very heavy philosophical or wisdom type of teachings, but it's all sort of like hidden in these very like fantastic stories that appear myth-like. Matter of fact, a lot of people will even say that the myths, even India sometimes will call their own stuff myths, but the books themselves don't call them myths.
Yeah,
It's because they get modern people, they get influenced by Western culture,
Right.
and the Western says, yeah, well, these old, everyone's got a myth, the Greek myths, but no, the books themselves speak. They're not myths. Just because you can't understand them or perceive them doesn't mean they're myths.
Right. And I was thinking back to when we had Eddie Stern on.
Yeah.
And he was describing how, he was speaking about mantras, but the mantras are coming out of the same books as all these stories. It's all one presentation. And he was saying that they've been repeated just billions of times, over the centuries. And, and what you repeat, that's what you build your mind out of, right? It's like, it's something's handed down and repeated again and contemplated and repeated again. And that becomes your subtle body. So what you think about and what you repeat, that's what you become.
Be careful what your habits are.
And
right?
And careful what you absorb. And not to go into too much detail, but I just think, more than it always, I think when you and I were growing up, we can see, okay, there's a lot of garbage to watch on television and there's a lot of, silly stuff that you can get absorbed in. But it just seems like currently it's on such a high level of, reality television and
It's
just
accessible
all
everywhere.
the level of a lot of the music that we're hearing. It's just gotten to such a point where as a society, we're kind of falling apart.
Yeah, not like the music of our days. That was very sophisticated and cultured.
Youth of today, that was a whole other thing. But even any case,
I understand.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming. It's like coming in through our phones.
Social media,
Yeah.
The level of just the low level of stuff that we're absorbed in, you can just see how it's playing out with, like, we can't even understand what is true and what is false, even though it should be plain in front of us. We can't get along. We can't. Yeah, we're falling apart because I would say it's largely because of what we've been absorbing our mind and what we've become. Whereas if the value of these, and again, this chapter is just hitting one after another, boom, 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 boom. Now as you go through Bhagavatam, it's going to expand on each one, and you'll see what's churned out of each one. And it's written in beautiful Sanskrit poetry with deep, profound, consistent philosophy.
So this chapter is really a bunch of movie trailers for upcoming events in the Bhagavatam.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like Prabhupada is reviving that tradition, or let's say, in a sense, kind of like starting it for the Western world. That, hey, you don't have to watch this stuff on television and listen to all this garbage. There's something really valuable here that you can absorb your mind in and become transformed by. And not only that, but it can also save our society in its darkest moment.
Yeah, it's getting dark. Okay, text 13. Text 14. Text 14. The personality of God had assumed the incarnation of Nrsingadev in order to vanquish the great fears of the demigods. He killed the king of the demons, Hiranyakashipu, who challenged the Lord with a club in his hand, and by placing the demon on his thighs and piercing him with his nails, rolling his eyebrows in anger and showing his fearful teeth and mouth. So this is probably one of the more famous avatars with that ferocious lion. He's a Nara Singha, a man lion avatar of Vishnu. Generally, you see these pictures of Krishna, they're very beautiful, or Vishnu, they're very charming, very beautiful. This is the ferocious avatar. Oftentimes, devotees pray to for protection. And same thing, same old story. Guy gets too much power. He does yoga for the wrong reason. That's Hiranyakashipu. He does yoga for the wrong reason with the poor intention to develop powers, to become popular, to become liked, to develop strength. And he's the greatest of all yogis. Like, we got some great yogis. Listen to the show. I'm looking at Lori Pag over here. We got some pretty powerful yogis. No one's more powerful in one sense than Hiranyakashipu was. He got so many powers and mystic siddhis that even the demigods were in great fear of him. And so the demigods, in their natural state of fear, they go right to Lord Vishnu. We're scared. We're scared. We need help. It's what we do in great destitution. Devotees take shelter of Lord Vishnu. And then Vishnu appears in this ferocious form. Anything else you want to add on Lord Nrsingadev?
We'll be reading, the many chapters are dedicated to that story, and some of the most important fundamental teachings of bhakti come out of it in the 7th canto of Bhagavatam.
Another story like Dhruva of a boy, a child, prodigy, devotee, right? Mm-hmm. At a young age, very, very spiritually evolved at a very young age. And also a great sign, like, you can be born in a crazy family. And also, by the process of hearing, it can transform the mind. Now, Prahlad, where was he coming from in his previous life? Do you know that?
I'm not aware, but he
was
heard
he
it all in the womb.
Transformed in the womb?
In the womb, because the Devas were thinking, there's going to be a son of
this evil guy.
And they're just terrified of what the child will become. But Narada assured them that no, because when Hiranyakashipu is out of town or whatever, I was telling stories to his mother, to his wife, which is Prahlad's mother. And so Prahlad was hearing all this in the womb. He came out pure devotee.
The process of hearing transforms us.
Yeah.
Okay. This is one of my favorite stories. Text 15. The leader of the elephants, whose leg was attacked in the river by a crocodile of superior strength, was much aggrieved. Did you see that post I put yesterday about the crocodile that comes into the... Wasn't that cool?
It's very cool.
It's all real. This stuff happens in India on a regular basis. The alligator comes in to has darshan of the deity. The priest gives the prasad, or the food, to the alligator, and the alligator, on the priest's request, goes back into the water.
There's so many things like that in India, right? Every day for 70 years, that alligator comes out, walks into the temple. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's cool. It's the alligator." It's a devotee, so it's not a problem.
You see this stuff happen all the time in India. Yeah. It's like, and it's almost like you got to take one more birth. You've ever met like these special animals? It's like they have to take one more birth as a dog, as an alligator, as a bird that only eats the food of the devotee, like a reoccurring bird. And they have to take one more birth, and they just got to do time in that body. I was saying that like that's sometimes I got to do time in this body.
Yeah. But imagine that this, I mean, people could say whatever you want. There's a temple there in Kerala where for 70 years, every day, a crocodile comes out of the temple lake, goes into the temple. They feed it without any fear, because they know this is the crocodile. He's been coming around, like every day. And they feed it, and then it goes back into the lake. And who is that crocodile, and what is the consciousness of that crocodile? I mean, how can you not believe that crocodile is like, oh yeah, I just want to be with the devotee. I just want to be in the temple, I'm in this body, but
Every being has a backstory, including us, has some backstory, and we don't even know what they're coming into this world with.
you know, there were those birds. Do you remember that story? And within our lifetime, it finally broke. But they're mentioned in the Shastra, these two birds that would come and be fed on top of this one mountain or temple or something like that. Do you remember that in South India somewhere?
No.
I got to look
But
that
these
up.
are like
Maybe
these
someone
are
here
things
knows
that
it.
happen.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that it was mentioned thousands of years ago in the Shastra that every day at this exact time, two birds come to be fed. And it was mentioned thousands of years ago, and still
It's the same birds.
the same birds would come. Yeah.
They didn't die.
No,
They're like eternal birds.
not eternal, because it eventually ended, but it was something. Maybe
Ancient.
someone here knows it. They could share that with us.
Okay. It's all real. The Lord. Okay. Oh, I didn't finish reading that. So this is the story of the elephant Gajendra.
Yeah.
Thus at once the Lord
Why don't you start
appeared.
the verse
Okay,
again?
let me start over. The elephants whose leg was attacked in a river.
The leader of the elephant.
The leader of the
Why did you
elephants.
skip?
I'm sick in the head. The leader of the elephants, whose leg was attacked in a river by a crocodile of superior strength, was much aggrieved. Taking a lotus flower in his trunk, he addressed the Lord, saying, O original enjoyer, Lord of the universe, O deliverer, as famous as a place of pilgrimage, all are purified simply by hearing your holy name, which is worthy to be chanted. Famous story. Every kid growing up in India knows the story. Gajendra, king of the elephants. The king, like the elephants are already sort of big, and they're pretty impressive beasts. And you know they travel in tribes. There's an alpha male. So Gajendra is that powerful alpha male of the elephants. And he's got that ego that goes with that elephant. And all of a sudden he goes into the water and clamp. Alligator, crocodile.
This was a different one, right?
Clamps down on his leg.
Yeah.
Right. And
not that friendly crocodile.
Yeah, this is not a good this is the crocodile of death. And we all have that ego, and we all have that crocodile of death that's taken away stuff from us, taken away our health, taken away our wealth, taken away our home, taken away our family sometimes. Material world is like that crocodile, chomping away at the things that we, at our false conceptions of security. There's no reason to be that secure in the material world unless you're an illusion or you're God conscious.
Well, and that's what the Bhagavatam is always pointing out, right? That not only was he like the king of the elephants, it's describing that he's in the waters, he's enjoying, his wives are there, his family's there, he's got it all.
He's got it all. He's the king of the elephants.
Right. But even when you got it all, we all are vulnerable. And so this crocodile bites on his leg. Now, normally the elephant could handle the crocodile. Step on it,
He was out of his element.
He was out of his element because he was in that water. The crocodile was gaining strength as the elephant was losing strength. And so the Prabhupada also really brilliantly used that as a very interesting example. Do you know the example, how he used that in the commentary?
No.
As he was in Hawaii when he was writing that commentary. And when at that time, one of his disciples who had taken the vows of a monk, of a sannyasi, had broken those vows, and he was embarrassed about it. And
the sannyasi was embarrassed?
Yes.
Or Prabhupada was embarrassed?
The sannyasi was embarrassed, his disciple, his student. Yeah. But Prabhupada didn't want him to feel humiliated. He wanted him to just keep trying, Okay, you didn't make it as a celibate monk, but you could become a married person and still practice this bhakti. So he wrote that because the elephant is naturally stronger, but because he was out of his element, he was losing strength. And he says, and that's what Varnashram Dharma is about too, that we need to be situated in our element. For some people, that's going to be like renounced and without unmarried and single and so on. For some people, being married will be the being in the right element, where you'll be gaining strength rather than losing strength, because we're all in a battle in a sense.
Sure.
Right? A battle to control the senses, a battle to control the mind. we need to be situated in such a way where it's most advantageous for us, be situated in our element.
That's a great point. You know, it's a great point because to carry out bhakti, I think the only reason I made it as long as I did as a monk was I was very happy what I was doing. Like I was a monk. I did all the principles of a monk, but I was in a band. I was in for a lot of that period of monk. I was in a band. I traveled. I mean, we chanted 60 rounds. We were celibate. We cooked our own food and stuff like that. But you know, I did what I naturally feel like I was good at: getting on stage, talking, singing, you know, writing lyrics. And then, you know, we travel, go to India, hang out there, feel a little refreshed, go back in the world.
So you were in your element.
I felt like I was in my element, and that helped me maintain. And I feel like sometimes when people get into bhakti, they have to figure out how their life is connected to an offering.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think it makes you enthusiastic about
getting up in the morning and
go like, what is my contribution,
right?
You know, to reaching out, right? And reaching out and pulling someone close, you know? And we need that because that our significance comes from how we contribute in this world. We have to figure out, what is my contribution? Is my workplace completely divorced from a contribution? And in that case, and I just make a lot of money at, well, then maybe I can use my money for contributing towards a good cause. Or maybe I can just shift the way I do things. Or maybe in the workplace, I just have special relationships and I set a perfect example of how a devotee should behave, how a devotee should talk, how a devotee, you know what I mean? We have to create a bridge to what we're doing on a regular basis and how it's serving, you know, Krishna and the devotees. And that way it'll inspire us to wake up in the morning. Or else after a while, you study these books long enough, you'll start to go, what the hell am I doing with my life? That happens to a lot of people. What am I doing? Why?
Okay. Should we leave it on that note?
Yeah. But it's what I feel like it's what keeps people around is that significance or that offering.
It's a fact.
17.
I was
Lord.
Say, should we leave it on the note? Because they thought we were.
Leave on the note. Oh, yeah. It's 59. Yeah, we can. We can leave on that note.
Oh, you can read this last verse because it's also about Gajendra.
Okay, why don't you read it, and I will cue up the music.
The personality of Godhead, after hearing the elephant's plea, felt that the elephant needed his immediate help, for he was in great distress. Thus at once the Lord appeared there on the wings of the king of birds, Garuda, fully equipped with his weapon, the wheel, the chakra. With the wheel, he cut to pieces the mouth of the crocodile to save the elephant, and he delivered the elephant by lifting him by his trunk. Interesting. He saved that crocodile too, though.
He delivered that crocodile.
Yeah, that's
right?
a whole other thing. Yeah, he did deliver the crocodile. Delivered
the elephant, and the elephant's backstory was interesting too, right?
He was King Indradyumna in his previous life.
So he was already. He had to do some time in an elephant body, which, you know.
The story also about the power of learning and memorizing mantras and how they can save you. Okay.
It's all there in the Bhagavatam. Thanks to everybody for joining us. We had like over 100 people again. It's great. What to speak of the thousands of others that have been listening. Hey, others, join the party here on Zoom. You just got to email Mara. wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. You can join this little crazy family of ours.
What's tomorrow, by the way?
Tomorrow's question day. And you write in your questions to Mara, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. And me and Kaustubha answer the questions the best of our ability. Sunday, we have Edwin Bryant. It's Walk on Sunday. It's Interview Sunday, where we interview interesting people, and he's very interesting. Professor at Rutgers and a scholar in the Bhagavatam and in Yoga Sutras. Every yoga school worth their dollar has Edwin Bryant speak or uses Edwin Bryant's Bhagavad Yoga Sutras to study with. So we are very honored to have him on the show Sunday. And I'm going to be in New York with Kaustubha. Looking forward to that.
Right.
Kaustubha, we're going to have
When
some
you coming
pillow
down?
fights. What else we're going to do?
We don't have pillow fights. We don't
We're
make
going to
no
have pillow
bake
fights,
cookies.
Kaustubha. No baked cookies, pillow fights.
When are you coming down?
I don't know.
Okay.
I got to figure it out today. And Nitai Lieberman. I don't know if anybody saw Nitai Lieberman, our second youngest member of the Zoom crowd. He put on the board that Mohini Morty was born out of the ocean of milk too, through the
true.
churning.
Was she
Eric
born
Noble
out
says-
of the churning, or did she just appear? I think she just appeared after the churning was done,
Mohini Morty? No, I
Yeah.
think she came out of.
because the nectar was already there.
Well, maybe. Uh-oh, Nitai Lieberman. We might have stumped you. You're going to have to find out. And there's our youngest member, Gopi.
There you go.
There's the
There she
dad.
goes.
There's the dad. What's up with these kids?
Parmesan.
All they want to do is watch the Bhagavatam.